What's up, guys, and welcome to another video. In today's video, we are not doing head-mounted. We're here with the Brand Daniels. Stevie Wonder. Okay. Yeah. Today, we are going to be learning how I actually sharpened my own Vulp Pro live blade. So Brandon has an unsharpened Vulp Pro, and we're going to get to sharpening that. So Brandon, if you would not mind, here is the camera.
Show me your ways.
Yes, so what I used for this process and what I personally suggest is this. This is the Work Sharp MK2.
Okay.
It is
let's give a
interesting tool.
The Work Sharp Sharpener.
Sharpeners. Work Sharp makes great sharpeners. They have all sorts of different sharpeners, but the MK2 is the most interesting to me because it is a belt sharpener. So it actually is very similar to how people sharpen actual knives.
Yeah.
There are other ways of doing that. There's whetstone sharpening and different things like that. But a belt sharpener like this is going to be very efficient, very quick. You know, it's just nice. It's convenient. The other thing that's really cool about this, though, is that there's multiple functions. For instance, it has this little thing right here, which is called the edge guide. This is a thing that pops into place, and as you drag the knife across the actual band, it gets caught on the edge guide and stays nice and straight as you're dragging it across. Alongside the edge guide, you can bend that down, and then you have access to like this spot over here that you can grind on freehand if you want. You can also grind freehand over here. It sharpens scissors. But also this actual guide right here, which has two settings, one for kitchen knives and one for pocket knives. The whole thing, the whole thing pulls off.
Oh.
And now you literally have a open grinding belt. And then you can actually tilt it forward and use it as like a actual like belt grinder on like stuff. So you can use it as an angle grinder and like do stuff with it. So it's very convenient. But
yeah, real quick, let the record show. This is the first time I have ever been exposed to any of this information. We didn't I don't currently know this. I will be learning it alongside you. Yes, so this is all new to me.
That's the idea of this video, is that I'm going to teach Brandon how to do this, and through that you will learn too.
Yeah.
So the way that this guy works is relatively straightforward. So you have two sides where you actually drag the knives through, and then you have the edge guide right here, which you just pop up. And I'm going to leave it in the down mode, which is for, so there's 2-degree presets basically. You have 25 degrees and 20 degrees. The 20-degree one is a slightly more honed edge. That is really good for kitchen knives, whereas 25 degrees is a little bit wider, and that's going to be a little bit better for pocket knives, and especially Balisongs, because it's going to give you a slightly more hard to dull edge, basically. Like if you drop it, the edge won't shatter immediately. Whereas if you make the edge really, really tiny, then you're going to be working with a really small amount of material, which will shatter really quickly. So this has an option for that, which is cool. So the way that it works is that there's a trigger right there, and when you pull the trigger, it goes. The actual function of this thing is relatively straightforward. So we're going to start with this really cheap Benchmade 42 clone. It is literally something where you push it in there like that. You're going to get it like set against the actual back part here. So that's how the angle guide works. You're going to set it so that the blade is flat against there, and then it'll be on the edge guard here. As I pull it back, you can see it kind of catches on the little edge guide.
Okay.
And so it that's how it'll be straightforward when I pull it back and forth. However, right now we actually don't even have the right belt installed. The way that belt changing works on this thing, and by the way, I don't know if I mentioned, this thing is like 80 bucks, which is not a lot in the sharpening world. Like a lot of nicer sharpeners cost anywhere in the neighborhood of $150 up to like $300 for a really good sharpener. This thing is a really solid sharpener for the price, so I highly suggest it for that reason. It's like 80 to 90 bucks, but it's really good.
Is this like a very specific way that this is designed to do stuff, or is this a general way that these are built? This just happens to be cheaper.
This is a very specific product that is designed to do this specific thing.
Okay.
There are not a ton of examples of this exact product.
Okay, gotcha.
So it comes with multiple belts, which you can see I have right here, and they come in different colors. What we just had is the purple belt. This purple belt is silverified because it's been used a lot, where this belt is nice and purple. This is the finest belt. then you have slightly less fine red belt, and then you have a very coarse green belt. We're going to use all three for putting a fresh edge on your Balisong. Because there is literally no edge on it, you will have to start with the green belt and you work your way down. But if you already have an edge, then you can start with the red belt, and then the purple belt is basically just for polishing. Also, these belts are rated for a lot of sharpening cycles, so you don't have to worry about running out of them very quickly.
What is a lot of sharpening cycles? Is that could you sharpen it 10 times, 50 times, 100 times?
100 times.
100 times. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Gotcha.
It's in the hundreds of sharpening cycles.
Okay. Cool.
So we're gonna go ahead and we're not gonna use a fresh belt because I do have these ones that are the fresher belts, and then I have those are our fresh belts, and then these are our previously used belts. We are going to use a fresh green belt because this green belt here was actually used to work on plastic, which has caused it to be coated in a layer of plastic, which is funny because like this layer actually, if you crack it off, it's actually still a perfectly fine belt underneath. But I don't want to worry about dealing with that right now, so we're going to use the fresh green belt later.
Okay.
Anyways, the way that this works when we're going to put an edge onto a Balisong is I'm going to tuck our belt into this guy, and it just kind of goes into place. And then you literally just twist this, and it spring lock puts the belt in the correct orientation, and everything goes good. So there's two speed settings here also. It's got a switch between 2 and 1. You can hear the speed difference slightly in the pitch of it. And it's literally this easy. You take the Balisong, you make sure it's set to the right size. I would say wear eye protection if you don't have glasses. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look. This is where the choil is right there, okay? That's the sharpening choil. I'm going to start right where the sharpening choil is. If there's not a sharpening choil on your Balisong, for instance, I think, this one does not have a sharpening choil. You're just going to start as close to where the edge starts as possible. Otherwise, you're going to start eating into, like, the neck area of the Balisong. So we're going to start at that choil, and I'm going to put it in. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing the side of the Balisong up against this felt side, not to the left. You're not tilting it away from it. You're tilting it and trying to have it be as flat against the side of this thing as possible.
Okay.
So I'm going to do that, go down in there, and we're going to press the trigger and go and move back at the same time. And then we're going to stop. We're going to go back to here. We're going to stop, holding the Balisong at that angle that you were at the whole time. We're going to stop on the actual tip, where the tip stays on the blade, and we're going to let it stop running with the tip on the blade. If you fully pull it off, what'll happen is the belt will kind of like curve around like this onto the front of the tip and dull the tip for you. Whereas if you leave it right around in the middle, it will sharpen up the whole tip. So that's actually one of the nice reasons, the things that's nice about having a belt grinder like this is that the belt is flexible and moves. So you can do, like if you take this off and you learn to freehand it, you could freehand a different angle onto it if you wanted.
Okay.
So, all right, I'm going to try that now. So we start here, and I go... And that's 1. And then you just do that maybe 5 or 6 times per side. So we're going to do that now. All right, so that's one side done. So I've now ground that side, and then this is the other side. And then you just literally repeat the process on the opposite side.
I see, okay.
And you can see right there, if you look from the top, how I'm kind of stopping at the tip. So look from directly above. Like that. So now we've got a pretty good edge already, and you can kind of feel it when you put your fingers on there. You can feel it kind of catch a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is pull off this belt, and that's what's really nice about this thing is you can change the belts so easily. I'm going to put on our purple belt here, and the purple belt is just for polishing and honing that edge. And you do need to do this step like per thing. You need to change the belt and do all the different things. You also just run it once and it kind of recenters itself.
Okay.
And we're literally just going to do the same steps now, but for polishing it. So
Gotcha.
the polishing step is important because it's actually removing sort of a buildup of a bunch of tiny, like, micro pieces that are on the actual blade. Right now we're pushing them over in the opposite direction, and then we're going to remove them with the final pass on the opposite side.
Okay.
And that's what will make the blade, like, sharp. And something to note here, too, is that as I'm doing this, you don't have to be super duper perfectly accurate with, like, how vertically you're holding the knife or anything like that. If you overdo that in your head, you're going to get too freaked out about it, and it's not going to work out great. So it's better to kind of, like, understand exactly what the pulling is. And so what we're going to do in a second is, as you can see, I have kitchen knives out here, and I have my Atropos Curate. I suggest practicing on a number of knives that are, like, cheaper and easier to fix if you mess it up.
Like me, I have a spare set of kitchen knives that I would happily, like, they need a sharpening up anyway,
Exactly.
and I'm not concerned about really
Learn
damaging
to sharpen
them.
on that before you try to sharpen, you know, your blackened blade, Vulp Pro or whatever. Because, like, when you try to sharpen something like this, as you can see, I had to be very precise in terms of where I was sharpening. Because if you're not careful, the sharpening belt can actually touch higher up on the blade, and then you'll end up removing material from, like, in the mid blade, and then it'll be silver there. You know, if you're sharpening, if you're trying to put an edge on a black blade like this, that's just going to happen. So let me throw the last bit of the edge on this one. And what you'll find as you're sharpening is that little guide where the actual, like, edge of the blade rests, that's what actually helps you keep straight throughout the whole thing, not necessarily the guide itself. The guide itself is more like for starting position, and then as long as you keep it as vertical as possible throughout, it's the edge catch that will keep you pulling it straight backwards.
Here's some close-up stuff of this. How does this trigger work? Okay. That's not.
We'll practice.
Okay, that's not too crazy.
All right.
I see.
I have a demonstration.
Oh, and it has little labels for it there too. I see.
Yep.
Oh, there we go. Okay, yeah, that's very sharp.
Yeah, that is a nice and.
Oh wow, yeah.
So it works.
Okay, and that's just with 2 belts.
And this is on a 440C Benchmade 42 clone from way back in the day, and I can cut little strips of paper.
Wow.
Like that. So.
Okay.
And that's 2 belts. Yeah, that's not the green belt is the one that takes a bunch of material off and actually, like, removes it, which you will have to use for this. But I will teach you how to use the green belt using a larger knife like this, because learning the green belt on a smaller knife like this is less useful. So, what we're going to do now is we're going to cut, time will pass, and Brandon is going to practice on a few different knives. And I'll probably record his first attempt on whatever Balisong we end up using. But yeah, it's about to cut, and time will have passed, and we'll see you then. So yeah. Also, leave a comment if you have any extra questions.
Yes.
Obviously, this isn't going to explain everything. It's just the way that I've done it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, back to the future.
All right, Brandon. This is now you get to try.
Okay, so we push down, over.
Yep.
It's literally my very first time doing this.
And the belt just
then
comes
the
right out.
belt.
We're going to go to the red belt for this one because you are literally just adding an edge back to a knife that already has an edge.
Okay.
So you're going to tuck it into here.
Yeah.
Yep, just tuck it straight into that area, nice.
Okay.
And then pull it up and around the thing. And then just pull the trigger a couple of times and it will self-align.
Ah.
Yep.
Okay. 3, 2, 1.
Nice.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I have to do that how many times?
5 times.
5 times.
Though it changes depending on, you know, how sharp you want to get it and all that jazz. Or, like, you know, you can decide if you need to change by looking at the edge and stuff.
Okay.
Very nice.
Okay.
All right, now just do the other side.
Okay. So
Same. Now I'm pushing to the other side. Last time I interacted with something like this was whenever I was making the butter knife Balisong.
Oh, wow.
With Stitch. Okay.
Cool.
That doesn't look destroyed, so that's
So
as good as that'll get.
the next step with this one would be to take the purple belt to it.
Okay.
And get that nice and polished. But that's the exact same process that the viewers have already seen. So we're going to let you practice that, and then we'll cut back to when you're actually putting the fresh edge on your new knife.
Okay, fresh edge of Bel Air.
So Brandon is now learning to sharpen on the green belt, which is the belt that removes the most. It removes the most amount of material, the green belt, and it is a lot louder.
Much louder. Yeah, like when I first put it in, I was like, is that how that's supposed to sound? He's like, yep. Okay.
I highly suggest practicing with the green belt before you try to move on past it. Obviously, we're going to start with the green belt. The difficulty here, and the reason that we practiced with the bigger knives first, is you're going to have to be very consistent with holding the knife as vertical as possible, because, as we've covered earlier, if you don't, you will end up marking or marring the inside of here instead of only cutting that edge. So you've got to be very careful as you're sharpening this guy that you are being very intentional, both about the placement. So the first thing is, as you're putting it into the sharpener, you will need to be very intentional. You're probably going to like fully need to check each time before you go that you are sharpening from the choil across the knife.
Because that's something I haven't dealt with on these yet, is actually utilizing the sharpening choil.
Yeah, so you're going to need to make sure that you are starting at that choil, which is this little part right there. You start right there, and that'll give you space to sharpen the entire Balisong.
Okay.
So yeah, start with putting the green belt on there, and then you're off to the races.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah, once you get used to putting the belts on too, it's really easy to change them, which is really nice because a sharpening system like this, where it's easy to change stuff, is very useful.
So, how should I be utilizing the sharpening choil in terms of like the first initial like placement of it?
So for the very first placement, you want the belt to basically be right on the where the choil actually happens. So you're going to put it in there very carefully, literally so that the belt starts where the choil starts. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So you need to match that.
Like the middle of the choil?
Middle to beginning of the choil, but not near the back of the choil, because you'll notice the actual material starts to thicken out right after the choil.
Okay.
And that's what you're trying to avoid while sharpening, is hitting that thicker material. Otherwise, it'll silver up the inside of here.
Okay. So I should be aiming for like right there.
Yes, like right after the choil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And it should just be a vertical placement into it.
Oh, wait, let's set it to pocket knife mode first of all.
Oh, yes, yes.
We were in kitchen knife mode.
So it should be going like there?
Yep.
I guess.
Yep, that's looking good. Now notice you're already kind of fucking it up though. See how that's touching the actual Balisong from the top? So bring your Balisong back, because you're too deep in. There you go.
Okay.
That's a better starting point. There you go.
Okay.
And notice you're also left to right centering. You want it to be as centered as possible, not like too far to the left or too far to the right.
With this.
Just like straight in general.
Straight, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, here it goes.
Good luck.
3, 2, 1.
Sure to tilt at the end. Ooh,
It came out a little fast.
that was got to be careful there. That was good though. Nice work.
Okay. That doesn't look atrocious for a very first time.
No, that's not half bad.
Ever. Like, there's obviously
A little bit into the choil
there,
area,
yeah.
but like pretty damn good otherwise. Pretty sexy blade.
Yeah, that area isn't super clean, but everything else is pretty
consistent.
Yeah, definitely. What I can say is it's slow and steady is the way to to do it.
It's a touchy process, but it's also not super difficult. It's just like
it's a learning curve thing. I think it is like
this little work sharpener. This is just what I ended up using. That was good and didn't break the bank for me. So like it's a great price, it's a great little tool, but it is not the peak of what sharpening can be. And you can do this a bunch of different ways. You could do this with actual whetstones. It just takes a lot longer, but that whetstones you can learn and keep getting better and better and better with those. But this doesn't require nearly that amount of practice, and it doesn't require nearly that amount of thought or energy or anything like that. So I do want to be clear, this is not the end all be all of sharpening. This is just the easiest way to get something that has absolutely no edge on it to have an edge.
Yeah.
Okay, so you ground both edges.
Yes. So we did green belt 5 times on each side and discovered a few things. So from my initial placement in it and not like keeping it completely level, both right here and right here, you can see this is on the second side. Whenever we cut, I didn't start with it in the right place and had it a little bit too tilted toward the belt, so it caused that to form. It's overall, and then as I was pulling it out, like you just have to be really, really slow with it. So this is a little uneven at the bottom here, and then because I didn't keep it like level at the very end and wasn't like I was doing my best to keep it steady, but there's just a lot of stuff to worry about. On this side, you can see that it just got a little scuffed there where it didn't do that on the first side that I did. So it definitely shows that you definitely have to keep it as straight as possible and get it as consistent of a motion as you can, at least with the green belt.
Yeah, you want it to be a consistent, continuous like motion the entire time that you're grinding. You don't want to like stop at any point because it will eat into the knife and you'll get this weird like uneven wave to it. But overall, your actual edge is very nice. We're gonna try doing a little bit of, you can like add just some Sharpie on there to try to get rid of the spots where it's like silvered, like this little line here. It'll at least make it look slightly better. But that is the unfortunate part that we were kind of talking about, is like with black blades, you are dealing with something that is entirely subtractive. So any mistake you make will show up very brightly on a black blade, whereas like this small of a removal would not be you would literally not have noticed you did that on a silver blade.
I see.
So that is something to note, is that if you are actually going to be like working on your own Vulp Pro or whatever, if you have a silver blade, you basically will need a lot less practice than on a black blade. The black blade requires a fair bit of practice if you don't want to have like any scuffs on it at all. But to some degree also, like, that's just proof that you did it yourself. You know?
That's true. Yeah.
It's like, it's not, it doesn't need to be perfect. It didn't come with an edge on it. It's not a factory edge. You have to be the one to put that on there. So, that is the other half of it. But yeah, okay. So Brandon, now I guess it's your time to put the red belt on.
Which is this one.
Yep, that is that one. And now we're going to go into honing the edge. So the green belt is for actually putting an edge on it in the first place. And then the red belt is going to sharpen that edge. So right now the edge is not actually like really that sharp. It just exists at all now.
I guess it would be interesting to
give it a test.
This poor little piece of paper.
Yeah, this poor paper we fucked up.
Okay, yeah, so that...
It's that's not tearing at most.
Yeah, that doesn't have an actual sharp edge on it.
Yep.
Okay.
So you need these next two steps to really make that sharp edge work.
Okay.
So cool. All right, Brandon's gonna go ahead and hone that edge, and we'll come back.
Okay.
You think you got it?
That's 5 on each side. But I didn't fuck it up more.
Great.
Even though I started by fucking it up, but that's the beauty of this process. So, I don't know, can I just go, do I need to clean it up at all?
Yeah, so I would say, so two things. First of all, there are going to be a bunch of little metal shavings like all throughout it. So something you will want to do. Wow, I really thought the camera would point down. I don't know why I thought that. I wasn't like trying to point it down. I just like moved the Balisong below the view of the camera, and I was like, it'll follow me. I don't know why I thought that. Anyways, so there's a bunch of metal like particles all over the Balisong now. So something you need to do is you can either take a new toothbrush or an old toothbrush, just one that's completely clean with no water on it, and like brush it off. You can also use other brushes. You can use canned air to remove all that, but you're going to want to remove that before you start to flip it, because otherwise those microparticles of metal will go into the pivots, and you don't want that. So yeah, you gotta wipe it off, gotta clean it up a bit, but otherwise, yeah, you can go straight into the cutting test, Brandon.
Okay. So what I can say about this process is it's definitely taking it slow and steady is the way to go, and I wouldn't say it's for the faint of heart, because like this process is a little less intense for me, because at the end of the day, if I need to get a replacement Vulp Pro, that's just a quick, hey, Nabalis, can you send another Vulp Pro?
Yeah.
But if this is like the one, like if you have a black blade and this is the only one you have, definitely practice on other stuff. Definitely, like in terms of the actual positioning of putting it in here, like making sure that it's very level, very straight, and that you're keeping that consistent throughout the whole thing, because one little twist or turn in the wrong direction and you're going to end up like this did with that. Which this probably happened on the very first one that I did it.
It did.
But as I did it more, the muscle memory kind of started to kick in.
Yeah. I highly suggest basically like practicing with it until you feel almost totally comfortable with the concept of like where you need it in there, what angle you need it at, and like how much you need to tilt it when you get up to the tip. You know, do you need to leave it straight? Do you need to tilt it? You need to practice that with a few knives from like your kitchen or whatever before you go to this, because one more thing I want to add is if you are using this to sharpen a Balisong that you already own, you need to be careful with it, because there are only two settings. There's 20 degrees and 25 degrees, and if you don't know what angle your blade was sharpened at, you're basically going to be putting a whole new blade onto it. If your blade was sharpened at 19 degrees or like 18 degrees or like 32 degrees, those sharpening angles are not going to match the sharpening you're about to put on the blade. Therefore, you're going to basically grind a brand new edge onto your Balisong. That's not a bad thing, but it is something to be very aware of.
Yeah, especially if like this is what you're going to be sharpening on in the future. Like obviously, you'll have to do that the first time, but then it's been sharpened at that angle, and then you're good. But
precisely. If you want to think about this, those more expensive sharpening systems, the one that cost $200 to $300 to $500, those have more refined angle controls, especially like the Wicked Sharp system. The Wicked Sharp system is two whetstones that you're like moving on either side, and they actually have a full angle control. You can set it to any angle you want, and you can set it to very, very specific angles, and that's what a lot of sharpeners are using. So you need to know that, don't just try sharpening your Balisongs. Know that if you sharpen a Balisong in this, you're probably going to put a different angle than it was originally manufactured with onto the Balisong.
Okay.
Anyways, that's enough of my talking.
Okay, yes,
Brandon, give me that cut test.
I gave it a rough
let me
test, and now I'm scared, but we'll see. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Oh, yes!
Yeah, baby!
Oh, wait, no, that wasn't.
Cut like a little sliver on there.
Oh, God. Oh,
ooh, yeah.
Okay.
And that was
cool.
That was completely false live blade before.
Yeah, we started barely... I don't know, 20 minutes ago?
Yeah.
This was a completely not actual edge. That's a good edge on it, too.
Yeah, baby. Ooh,
yeah,
like butter.
It's definitely a process that I think is worth learning, especially like as somebody that loves to mod things. Like now, at least having some level of confidence that I could resharpen something. I was talking to Will off camera about my inked Crackerakin V1 blade is like really damaged. And like literally just from like it falling on things and like hitting a metal corner,
Yeah.
and like denting into it. But I would feel pretty confident about being able to put a new edge on that now and like get that back to not squid level, but at least this is sharp and usable again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop flipping it before it's clean.
I will
that's very
say
cool.
the other thing too is that Tonto blades are just a different animal when it comes to grinding.
Yeah, I was gonna
it.
say because I guess I
It's
didn't
a
think about
two-stage
that.
grind, so
'Cause
you
it
do
won't be-
one and then the other.
And then one. Okay, I didn't think about that. So that would actually be another thing to have to learn.
Yes.
Yeah, because this was a process of. It was kind of interesting because with this, it shifted from being like where I was resting it kind of just on the whole grinding system itself, and then in like once I got to more like the front of the blade, that's when I was resting it on
The actual little like edge
on
guide.
this actual edge guide thing right here. And that actually helped me a lot in terms of that final bit of stability. And I think that's what caused this scuff to happen, was that I wasn't putting it anywhere. It was just kind of free floating there.
Yeah, whereas you want to use that edge guide if possible. It's very helpful to have that.
Yeah.
So anyways, that is a haphazard introduction as to how to use this thing. As I said, a couple more disclaimers. Look up other tutorials because there are a lot of tutorials for how to use this thing. Read the manual. That's what I did, is I just basically read the manual for it.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to know here is, once again, this is not the end-all be-all of sharpening. There are much more complicated systems and a lot more that you can learn about to sharpen your balisongs. I have a feeling this will make some balisong makers cringe, and that's totally okay because this is just a very basic level of sharpening. This has nothing to do with some of your higher quality sharpening stuff. So
and even this kind of stuff falls into the realm of like, you can look up a video of how to do it, but you're not really going to know how to do it until you just actually do it.
Exactly.
Like you can look up, or you can be told, oh, make sure you keep it steady, but you won't know what that actually means
until you're actually
doing it. So just be open to maybe fucking it up.
The other reason that the Work Sharp system was the one I went with here is because of the green belt. Like the other systems have coarser belts, but the reason that I went with this one is because it is a power tool and because it has that green belt. And the reason that is important is because on this, you are starting from zero.
Yeah.
There is no edge. If you were to do this on a whetstone, you would be doing this for a really long time, trying to get enough material removed. Whetstones are great for getting really, really razor sharp stuff, but they're not great for,
starting that.
Exactly.
Processes.
Like you want to use a belt grinder to start an edge, not necessarily just freehand whetstoning. So this is going to get you there a lot faster, so it's convenient and easy, not necessarily the best thing ever. So anyways, that's an introduction into sharpening the Vulp Pro, but also any false edge live blade or any live blade in general. You can use this tool and this knowledge, so go forth and enjoy.
It would create an edge.
It would create an edge.
The best edge or even the edge.
It is just an edge.
And this work, like as you saw, it'll do everything I needed to do. Like I'm scared to flip this now for real.
Yeah.
It's that sharp. So but that feels cool.
Cool.
So there we go. Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Peace.